What's up, everybody? You're watching episode 17 of Instant Gratification on Geektacular.TV. My name is Bruce, aka Geektacular, and with me, as always, my co-host, Just Nathan.
That's Lieutenant Commander, Just Nathan.
Aw, snaps. Is that an STO reference?
Yes, it is.
Maybe that's for another show. Maybe we need an STO show. What do you think?
We can just do your MMO podcasts, and we can debate WoW versus STO all day long.
Oh my gosh. You're throwing down the gauntlet today.
But hey, we'll do it.
I'm worried about the comments on YouTube. That's what I'm worried about.
Anyway.
Like we said, this is Instant Gratification. If you've never seen this show, we review streaming movies online. So it can be on Netflix Instant Watch, it can be on YouTube, anything like that. Anything you can find online so that you can watch this show and then you can go watch it for yourself and see what you think of it and see how wrong or possibly right we might be.
One might say you'd get instant gratification.
Oh!
I think that's been the first call-out that we've ever done to the title on this show.
That's shocking that it took 17 episodes for that term to ever come up.
You think we should have worked it into every one?
I know. I don't know. But anyway, it's all movies you can watch instantly to gratify yourself.
That didn't sound...
That's
talk about YouTube comments.
I guess that might be a different kind of website, not this website. Anyway.
Correct. That's another show coming soon to Geektacular.TV.
No, it's not coming soon to Geektacular.TV. There's plenty of websites covering that sort of content, I'm sure. Anyway, if you guys didn't see our tweet about the movie from last week, this is the movie that we're going to be covering tonight.
Right.
It is The Missing.
And boy, aren't we starting out with a very jovial tone to what's a dark and kind of screwed up movie.
The Missing.
Child slavery.
That's not funny.
No.
So,
Well, I guess I'll talk about a little bit about the movie since it was my pick. This one is kind of different for us. We don't often do, I wouldn't call this one necessarily huge budget, but fairly mainstream. Ron Howard directed, Tommy Lee Jones, Cate Blanchett star, and there's various other folks you've seen in other things. Aaron Eckhart's in it, Val Kilmer in a weird role, which we'll probably talk about, and some other people in sort of ancillary roles. It's a period piece, takes place, actually, Texas, I guess, right? Or Arizona, somewhere like that.
Yeah.
Somewhere close to the Mexican border. I don't remember exactly. Right. Is Arizona? Okay. And it basically involves a woman who is leading a fairly normal sort of frontier life when a mysterious guy comes back into, well, you know what? Spoiler, this comes in the first 15 minutes. It's her dad. Her dad shows back up after a long period of time. They're struggling with their relationship, and then one of her daughters goes missing. And since her dad is sort of an honorary Native American, they go out to try to track her down, find the missing people.
The Missing.
Well, the missing refers to a lot of other stuff too, because the father was missing for so long, and there's a lot of relationship stuff that hasn't really happened there, and even I think you could draw something with the religious overtones of a lot of it as well. But anywho, normally the way we do this is we talk about the stuff we like, the stuff we didn't, the stuff we thought was kind of silly and stupid, and then we do our ratings. So why don't we start out with good stuff?
Good stuff.
What you got?
It's the first thing that you notice, I think probably from like the first minute of the movie, is that it's just like a really nice looking movie. Like it's got a lot of good like landscape shots. It's got a lot of good cinematography as far as like beautiful natural things go.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's definitely got, and it has, I think, a fairly, I wouldn't say a unique style, but it has a consistent style. Um, that's nice to see. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it does take place in kind of a deserty sort of area, but it's still it's got a lot of like vista shots and a lot of kind of like sweeping landscape
Well,
shots as
and
well.
interesting locations too. The I don't know what you'd call them, those stone houses that they're in towards the end of the.
Yeah.
Those were really interesting. That wasn't something that I was really familiar with, at least not having seen them
Right.
before watching this film. So
Yeah, I guess they were like ruins of old like settlements or something.
yeah, I couldn't tell exactly what was going on with those, but they were interesting nonetheless. I can't speak to how period the movie actually is.
Right.
I mean, and we can talk about that more too if you want to. I don't think it really matters for the film. I'm not a stickler for that kind of continuity.
Hmm.
As far as is everything totally period, because they don't really place it exactly. I mean, it's post-Civil War, not too far after the Civil War, but they don't really nail it down too much harder than that.
Right.
Um, so, I mean, I'm not busting their chops for stuff that may not have been historically accurate, but in general, the style and just a lot of the little mise-en-scène things, a lot of the little stuff in the house when they're starting out, and the stuff in the stables, and all of that stuff is nicely done, I think.
Hmm. Yeah, I would agree.
I'll jump in on a good, if you
Sure.
don't mind. This film contains, as the stars, basically, two actors that I really enjoy watching, and one only when he's in specific roles. So Tommy Lee Jones, I don't love all the time, but this is the kind of role that I like him in. You can tell, well, he's done Western movies of his own since. I think this character, which frankly, you could kind of see some parallels even with his character in No Country for Old Men, as far as the sort of worn down but still tough character with a heart, underneath. And he does a good job of playing that role, and I really like seeing him in it. And this one's a little bit different because there's an inclusion of some Native American spirituality and sort of a stoicism that comes along with that. In addition, Kate Blanchett, I like in pretty much everything that I see her in. I think she's been great in lots and lots of movies, and it's kind of a shame that people don't recognize her more. I mean, I know she's a fairly big star and everything, but I think she's really excellent, and I think it shows in this movie. I feel like I don't know that she steals scenes a lot, but she definitely holds her own with Tommy Lee Jones, with anybody else on the screen, and really has some of her best moments, I think, are when she's by herself,
Hmm.
or when everyone else isn't really, talking, and she's able to sort of take center stage.
Right.
Yeah, but I thought their performances are quite good in this film.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah. Um, Let me think. Other good things. Other good things. I mean, what did you think of the story? I guess that would be important to talk about.
I liked it. I I really liked the idea of kind of what was going on at the time. Like you said, it may or may not be entirely accurate historically, but I liked the idea of what was happening at the time about like the Native Americans and kind of the white people sort of starting to like mix together, which hadn't happened before.
Right.
They've started like working together in different capacities on both the good and the bad sides of
Right.
things,
Right.
of the law and such. So I thought that was kind of an interesting dynamic, and that really, I think, it enhanced a lot of the different. It brought extra meaning to a lot of the things that happened to them, and
Yeah, and
interactions.
I think they use spirituality as a way to sort of mirror that as well, because there is a lot of sort of talking about Christianity versus the spirituality that Native Americans have. And there are some things in the movie that I think could be seen as, I don't know the right word for it, miraculous or or supernatural or whatever, but I think all of it can also be explained rationally too, which I thought was a nice touch. Like there's nothing in it, even something like we talked about Red State a couple of episodes
I was
ago.
just about to bring that up, actually.
Well, and yeah, of course they're both about religion, but there's things that happen in Red State that I think come out as maybe a little too coincidental.
Hmm.
You know, that it's really trying to lead you to that assumption that some other force was in play. I don't feel like it was that explicit here. I feel like everything that happened could pretty easily be explained rationally.
Hmm.
You know, it's just sort of your perception of whether or not it's, yeah, whether or not it is that, or it's just, you know, the fact that someone knows about poisons, or that, you know, this thing just happened to happen, or whatever.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Every every kind of yeah, like you said, I don't know what to call it, supernatural thing that happens. There's always like two causalities depending on the perspective that they're showing you at the moment.
Right.
So there's the woman who is, who's a Christian, and uh, she believes in like traditional Christian values and not like shamanism or anything like that, which is more of the side of Tommy Lee Jones's character, who is he's white, but he's Native American trained or something. I did that was the one part I didn't
He
understand.
Well, he left his family to go off and learn from these tribes, and he's traveled to a number of different ones, and different ones have given him names and things of that nature. But he's picked up a lot of their culture, a lot of their religion, and a lot of their methods. You know, the way they attack, the way they track, the way they think, and it does come into play because you sort of see him. He has foils in the soldiers who are Native American who are working for the U.S. government,
Right.
who are working in the U.S. military, and they have some interactions, and you can tell that there's a lot of animosity there that really doesn't have anything to do with the individuals involved.
Right.
That is more about the cultural shifts back and forth.
Yeah, and that sort of thing creates a lot of tension in several parts of the movie between a lot of the characters, and I think that kind of pushes along some of the story too, because I mean the main part of the story is about them trying to track down her missing daughter, but further than that, there's a couple of different subplots about her father who was gone during most of her childhood coming back to help her,
Right.
all this other kind of stuff going on. Like we mentioned, the mixing of the whites and the Native Americans for the first time in American history, working together in different ways. So yeah, I felt like that all sort of like mashed together. But I guess back to the point that we were talking about. Yeah, I liked how, like, I don't know if do you want to give maybe one example of it? Maybe I don't think that's spoiling it too much.
Well, let me try to think of one right off. Well, okay, there's no. I've got one.
Okay.
I've got. So there's a scene where Tommy Lee Jones gets sprayed in the face with this mixture of stuff. Yeah, yeah, and he thinks, and basically he hallucinates, and he thinks that he may, I mean, he's very close to death, and that collection of stuff that gets blown in his face. We kind of see the person who did that earlier, like combining things and gathering venom and things of that nature. And so while on one hand it's sort of like, yes, maybe there's a spiritual element, he's taking the person's soul or whatever, because there's a lot of talk about souls in the movie. But it could just as easily be that this is a poison cocktail, and he's inhaling it, and so he's affected. And even right from the very beginning, well, not, we don't know that from the very beginning, but Tommy Lee Jones' character does have a concern about his soul anyway. And so that's how he perceives all this stuff that's going on.
Right. Yeah. And when those situations happen, usually, if he's with his daughter, she, obviously has kind of a different. When they're shooting it from her perspective, they kind of show the more like traditional, sort of thought about what's going. It really changes. The way that they present it changes depending on which character is being focused on at the time, I think.
Well, and I think honestly, whichever sort of point of view that you tend to gravitate towards, and I'm not just saying Christianity versus another kind of spirituality, but just the idea of sort of rationality versus the more supernatural or miraculous or whatever you want to call it, the sacred and the secular. Whichever you sort of gravitate towards as you're watching the movie, I think you can read it that way pretty easily.
Yeah, I thought they did a really good job of keeping it kind of down the middle for all those things, and it happens several times in the movie. There's one, I probably don't want to give it away. It's not a big plot point, but there's one really like epic scene, kind of near the middle, I guess closer to the end of the movie, in which one of the characters kind of gets sick, and it's like a really like
Oh
poignant scene.
I know what you're talking about.
And that
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty another kind of grand example of that sort of super.
Well, and there again too is what occurs the result of some sort of interaction, or is it just a medical thing?
Right.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a lot of that.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of anything else. Do you have any other specific goods to throw
I
out
mean,
there?
those are pretty broad. So I don't have anything else specific really that I'd want to say in the good column for this one. I mean,
What about, how did you feel about the action scenes? There's several action scenes.
the action scenes were good. They probably could have been shot a little better. They're a little. I mean, it's sort of an artifact of the time in that there's not a lot of motion in the action as far as the camera moving. What you do see is nice, and I think it has a lot more to do with the physicality of the actors involved than it does anything else. I really do, because the shots that are the parts of the action scenes that are not the greatest don't tend to involve the lead actors.
Right.
I think. Now that said, there are some times where I think it was really effective, and usually it's when we weren't looking at the violence head on, when we were looking at them from another person's perspective, where they could only see part of what was happening.
Right.
Or there's a scene where, for example, where Tommy Lee Jones' character kind of gets sort of chased down into one enclosed area, and we're sort of in there with him. And I think those are the moments where it seems most tense. Any real big action shots in here were okay, but they sort of lacked a certain movement or intensity to them, I think.
Right. Yeah, I would probably agree with most of that. I mean, a lot of it is, I mean, just because of the time period in which it takes place, a lot of it is like shooting with rifles from really long distances and
Right.
missing repeatedly, of course.
Well, that's I was going to say a classic trope anyway, but yeah, I
So
mean, I
it's
think
not a
the
lot. It's not a lot of like Bourne kind of like. It's not a lot of like fist to fist combat or anything.
right, and I think in general, action in movies has really changed over the last 10 years or so, and I think that anything before that you kind of have to look at with a different lens, and that's probably the case with this too. I mean, and Ron Howard's never really known as an action guy anyway. I mean, there's action in some of his movies, but it's never something you tend to write home about.
Right.
But there were some that were really good, and again, I think those times are really about the physicality of the actors, or the stuntmen, of course, whatever. But really being, throwing themselves into roles when it is hand-to-hand physical, it is very sort of blunt, and that's as it ought to be. I mean,
I think in more than the actual like fighting sequences, I thought that all the chase scenes were really good.
yes.
A lot of
and really the whole thing is a chase.
Right.
Right? I mean, after the first, 20, 25 minutes?
yeah, after the incident.
Right, which we've already talked about, so that's fine. I mean, daughter gets stolen. But after that point, it really is a chase movie after that. And it does have starts and stops. But, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think the chases were done well. And just the way that the plot is laid out it gives you moments to breathe, but then tries to make it tense again later, and it does a pretty good job of that.
When I was when I was watching it, I was like, this is so much like things that I've seen, like not at one specific thing, but I was thinking about it and I was like, okay, if I had to describe this movie to somebody, I'm pretty sure I would tell them that it's a combination of the TV show Manhunter, where he's on his horse and he has like a buddy and they go around
Oh,
the wilderness.
that's
Okay,
ridiculous.
a combination of Manhunter, Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman,
Whoa,
because she's like she goes around and helps people and that
that's the
she's got
only Western related
she's
thing you've ever
no,
seen.
she's a medicine woman. She's got the buddy who's like white, but he's kind of like Native American
Oh my
oriented,
god.
and Taken with Liam Neeson, where they steal his daughter and he has to track them down.
YouTubers, comment at how ridiculous Bruce is right down here.
It's true. Watch the movie. If you're out there, you haven't seen it, watch it and tell me it's not a combination of Manhunter, Dr. Quinn, and what was the third thing I said?
Ridiculous, ridiculous.
Yeah.
No, no,
Yes.
no.
And Taken.
I'm sorry.
Yes. It's like all three of those plots all shoved together into one.
If you think that movie sounds stupid, ignore what he just said and watch this movie anyway.
I'm not saying that's bad.
That would be an awful movie.
That what? Okay, well this one has other elements thrown in. But
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So,
I thought that was a pretty apt comparison.
rather than comparing it to other things, we've talked about a lot of the good stuff. Do you have things that you want to throw down that were not so good?
Seemed kind of long to me.
I was wondering if you were going to say that.
I don't actually know how long it really is.
I want to say it's about 2 hours 20, something like that.
I think it could have been skipped.
By today's standards, it's a longer film.
It felt like I checked the time maybe twice throughout the movie. I was like, oh my gosh, how much more movie is there?
Well, and if you're like me, I'll tell you when it happened. It happened when you weren't with the main characters.
That's an interesting thought.
Because I'll tell you the thing that there's sort of a subplot going on about women during this period of time. And part of that is through Cate Blanchett's character, but part of it is through her daughter. Well, both of her daughters, really. But the daughter that was taken, not to use your term, but the daughter who is missing, and the daughter who's missing, and the other girls that she ends up with. And I think that they don't do a very good job with that storyline. It may have to do with the people who were acting in it, but anytime we're with that group of people, I always felt like it was not as good. Her daughter is played by Kristen Stewart, who you might know from the Twilight trailers, since I've never seen the movies. But, I see her on the trailers. And also, what's her name from Mad Men? Crap, I forgot her name. There's another, not her daughter, but another girl that's with her is one of the lead characters in Mad Men. I can't think of her name. Shoot. Anyway, you don't watch Mad Men?
I've seen a few episodes.
Oh, okay.
I'm not very well.
You know what I'm talking about? Anyway, I don't think they did a very good job with those, and I think the other characters involved there's a whole storyline involving a photographer that was unnecessary. I don't feel like I really got to know those characters that well. And I agree, there was a perfect chance for there to be a real sort of adversarial relationship there, and looking at the differences between them and the army and them and our main party. And we didn't really get that. They still seemed kind of two-dimensional by the end.
Yeah, they spent a lot of time showing the kind of the enemy's camp or whatnot.
Right.
And again, they would show, like you mentioned, the girls who were being kept there and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I didn't think that it added a whole lot, and they seemed to spend a lot of time there. And I get that it was to show sort of the contrasting differences between the two groups of people. But
I even felt that I had a better handle kind of on the army's perspective.
mm-hmm.
than on theirs, even though we spent way more time at the enemy's camp.
I mean, I would have been just as happy not seeing the girl until, the main party actually saw or got glimpses of her or something. Like, I almost feel like for a story that's based around finding somebody who's missing, that the less you reveal about the current situation as it's unfolding, I feel like that kind of adds a little bit to it. So I kind of wish there was a little bit more secretive.
Now, if this had been a miniseries or something like that, I could see us going to them more because we could have developed more of the characters.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? They either needed to give it more time or less.
Yeah, like I don't know any of their names. Like you see like one or two of the people repeatedly, like
Right.
the main guy and kind of the people around him.
Right.
But other than that, I mean, most of them hardly talk except the main enemy guy who doesn't really say anything that amazing.
Well, they're basically minions,
Right.
And he's the boss. And that's, if this was an old Batman cartoon, then, they would all be wearing matching outfits, which they actually kind of are, and they'd get beat up a lot.
And he talks in riddles most of the time.
Yeah, exactly. Are you suggesting he's the Riddler? No, no,
Sure,
no.
Batman in there.
Well, there is a Batman connection,
What?
which, if you're ready, will take us into the silly.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I need to hear this.
Okay. Well, there is a Batman starring in this film. I wouldn't say starring, but definitely in a cameo role. Val Kilmer's in this movie.
What?
Are you serious? You missed Val Kilmer in this movie?
Who does he play?
He was the army captain.
Oh, yes.
And boy, there are some crappy Western accents in this movie.
I do remember him. He's in like 2 or 3 scenes maybe.
Yeah, and it's not the major characters, it's the minor characters that sound ridiculous.
I
They're
didn't
stupid
really notice
accents.
that, but you're probably right.
Well, and let's face it, as the second worst Batman ever.
Who's number 1 on your list?
Oh, come on.
George Clooney?
Well, no. What? Oh, you mean worst?
Yes.
Oh, yes, of course.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
Sorry, I thought you meant best, and I was going to say, what are you talking
Everybody knows George Clooney is the best Batman.
Okay, we can
Did
talk
you not
about
see that movie?
we can talk about rating our Batman later, but
Batman episode.
or just a bonus episode. That would be short. Hopefully, our lists are the same.
There's not that many people to choose from.
There are not that many people to choose from. Anywho, there's some slip-ups there. I didn't think Val Kilmer added anything. There's a couple other cameos in here that, to me, just kind of throw it off more than anything. Mm-hmm. I actually, to kind of go back to it, Aaron Eckhart's in this movie, and it was before he really kind of got well-known. And I think he does a really good job with the part that he has, as sort of one-dimensional as the character is. He does breathe some life into it that I think wouldn't be there otherwise. So I thought that was a good choice to have him in there.
Right.
And the daughter, the younger daughter, is great too.
Yeah, she's pretty good. She doesn't have a lot of like pivotal moments, but she does have a couple of scenes that she steals that they're pretty good. I think that they add to it a lot. Because she's along for pretty much the whole movie.
Yeah, you see her a lot.
She's around the whole time, so.
And
kind of the third main character, sort of.
She could just be a plot device for a lot of the film, but she doesn't come off that way. So I think that's a really good thing.
Yeah, she's actually comes off as kind of like, even though she is so young, she's still sort of a useful kind of smart whip kind of character.
Right. Right.
So it's nice to have sort of a. I wish they had kind of milked it more to give more of a childlike perspective on some of the things that go on, because you get a lot of like of the two-way perspective sort of things, and I don't know if adding a third perspective and everything would be too much.
Well, I think she, in a lot of ways, is sort of the foil for her sister, because there's also this sort of country versus urban life thing that's going on, and her older sister is definitely interested in moving to the city and having all of that, and is not very sort of frontier wise, if you will. Like, she doesn't really know what to do in situations, and her sister really does, and so, well, or thinks she does anyway. But she's willing to try, and that's an interesting part of it too. Like, and I think there's this sort of question throughout the whole thing: is urban living not taking part in the full human experience? You know what I mean? Like, the people who live in town are kind of doing these small pleasures and blah, 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 but not really doing a whole lot. And they seem to not really care about things. Whereas out in the country, there are people who care more and do more. And yeah, the bad times are bad, but the good stuff's good too. I don't know. I think I mean, that's kind of a takeaway that I take from the movie, whether, whatever side of the sort of rational versus supernatural debate that you fall on. I think that's a part of it that sort of pervades it.
Yeah, I mean, they bring it up explicitly at the very beginning of the film about her
Right.
desire to, to leave the frontier life and move into the city. And that's actually probably one of my negatives I can add, is that I kind of wish that they had expanded on that conflict more. I mean, it does come up one more time in the movie when they actually go into a town and try to get
Right.
help and stuff like that.
Right. And I think that what happens in the town, and then as well their interactions with the army itself, both sort of represent that
Right.
issue too.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I think the issue that I have with some of the plot points, like that one specifically, is that they open up, like, they bring up a lot of issues of the time, but they don't really follow through with a thorough examination of most of them. They bring it up as like an issue, and they kind of start exploring it or start demonstrating it, but then they kind of like leave it. And I mean, it would definitely be too much if they tried to expand upon all the social issues and things like
Right.
that they bring up.
Well, again, and nowadays I could almost see this being an FX miniseries or an A&E, like 6-episode thing where you could explore some of those issues more. I mean, I think it's one of those time periods that haven't really been tapped too much for this sort of thing. Although I guess maybe was Deadwood the same time period.
Maybe.
Deadwood was a very different thing anyway. I mean, I don't want to compare the two in that respect, but it's like Deadwood and CSI and Batman. No, it's not. It's not. But
I like my comparison.
But I guess what I'm saying is that it's sort of a time period of transition, and so it's interesting to see that transition play out and to play with some of the issues that were going on. Because I think we always feel like we're sort of in a state of flux, or very often we do. And so it's interesting to look back at other time periods where that was the case. So I guess what I'm saying is they could have spent a lot more time exploring it, or they could have spent a lot less time exploring it, and I think it could have worked either way.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. I guess I have one thing that struck me as weird.
Okay.
For our weird / wacky / whatever section.
Yes.
That's that the Native Americans really love blowing stuff in people's faces. It's a unique attack tactic that you don't really see in most other films, and it happened like 4 or 5 times in this movie.
But to be fair, it's the same person doing it.
Was it the same person every time? I think
Yeah,
maybe it was.
I can't think of any other. So I mean, that's like his finishing move. I mean, it's what he does.
Over here.
And,
One of the times he has like a blowgun or something, and he like sticks it in his mouth.
yeah.
He blows it like right down his throat. Like, that's
Yeah.
messed up. And he shoves dirt in the girl's mouth.
That's right.
Like, that's messed up. Who shoves dirt in your mouth?
It was something about the Earth. I forget what the idea
He had a
was.
thing about putting powdery substances in people's mouths. It was very odd. I can't.
I, like I said, if everyone was doing it, I think it would be weird. But since it was this one character, I think it has more to do with just his sort of his. Like I said, that's his thing.
But like, yeah, I don't know. In most movies, maybe you might see that if like you're trying to blind somebody during a fight to like get away, like you have a pocket full of dirt. But he
Like
just does it to like
Bloodsport.
everybody.
There's a movie we should do. I wonder if that's on Instant Watch.
What?
Bloodsport.
With Jean Claude.
Yes.
I love
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Bloodsport.
All right. Anyway, let's not get off on other movies. Let me talk about our rating scale, and then we can do our rating.
Ah.
Ta-da! So the ratings we've got are buy, top of the list, something you like so much you want to keep buying it, or you want to keep watching it, you want to see the special features, you want to show it to your friends, etc., etc. We've got stream, which means it's good, it's worth watching, but maybe not buy. Clip means that there's parts that are good, but maybe not the whole thing. So you can just go out and watch it online, the little clip someplace. Skip means no, thank you. No, skipping it. So, well, you usually do the pick first. Why don't I do mine first?
Go for
You're always a solid stream guy. I know, that's what you like to say. In this case, I can't justify a buy on this one. I watched this movie a couple of years ago, and I think I saw it a couple of years before that too. And that seems to be a good period of time for me to go between watching this film. I enjoy it. I don't mind going back and watching it again. It was one of those. It's one of those where if it was maybe on TV, I would probably stop and watch it. But I really don't have a need to have this one. I'm very happy with being able to stream it every couple years and enjoying it or recommending it to people like we're doing here. So that would be my thing. Part of me wants to make it a buy because I do love some of the performances in it quite a lot. And certainly in the past, I've bought Kate Blanchett movies for less than, with not as good performances as this one has.
Right.
But nevertheless, I'd say it's a stream.
For me, okay, I'm gonna do sort of a hybrid answer here. Oh, yeah,
Out.
yeah. All right, so I think for most people, I think it
What
would.
would you rate it for you?
Okay, so this is. I really like the movie. I think it's a good like. I want to watch like an epic sort of like cool movie. I think it's good for that. So I would consider buying this movie
Oh.
under three conditions.
Oh,
I'm not
God.
sure if it meets. I would buy it on Blu-ray if it
Oh.
has
That's the point.
a featurette, like a good length featurette
Hmm.
on it, and if it's maybe like maybe like $10, I would buy it.
Sub $10 for the Blu-ray? Really?
Yeah. Yes, I would buy it
Really?
under those three conditions. There's a lot of Blu-ray movies sub $10. For example, like the Memento anniversary, I think it's like the 10th anniversary edition, is like $7 on Amazon right now, Blu-ray. So, I mean, I wouldn't pay like $20 for it, but if it had like some compelling extras and it wasn't too expensive, I might consider buying it. Because
Well,
I thought it was it's a good kind of like solid sort of chase sort of intrigue kind of story with a lot of good action. I feel like it would satiate the cinematic desires of a wide range of people.
well, I do not see it on Blu-ray,
Boo.
but on Amazon right now you can get the DVD for $13.49. It comes with a number of featurettes as well as 11 deleted scenes, outtakes, and 3 alternate endings.
Okay, that's cool. I'm a fan of alternate endings.
Really? Aren't
Yes.
these just discarded endings because they sucked?
Not always. Sometimes
There are
they're
very,
interesting.
very few movies where I prefer the alternate endings. There's a reason they are alternates. I'm just saying.
I like the idea of alternate endings. Even if they suck, I like the fact that they're willing to put it out there. Because most movies on disc aren't willing to put out the alternate endings. I mean, some movies it wouldn't really make sense because there wouldn't really be a sensical and or compelling alternate ending to the story.
The alternate ending for Clerks has always been one of my favorites.
I do, yeah, that one's good.
Yeah,
There's a few movies that have interesting alternate endings. Of course,
I will agree with that, but I mean, yeah, I'm not sure about this one.
Clue is an entire movie built around the idea of alternate endings.
Well, but again,
That is awesome.
those were intended to all be in the film. I don't think you can compare that. Nevertheless, given the fact that you could get it for actually a penny if you get it used on Amazon,
I would buy
um,
it for a penny, yes.
plus shipping, so you would buy it then. Okay.
Yes.
So are you rating this a buy?
No, I'm rating this I'm rating this a stream with a conditional buy clause if it ever gets to that point. So if you're watching this like 5 years in the future, everything is on like super Blu-ray, and Blu-ray's old by now because it's like 20 whatever
So when Bruce can watch
2017.
this on his holodeck and he can be in it, then he'll buy it.
Once Blu-ray is once it's out, I would buy it then. It depends on what year you're watching this. Right now, $14 normal DVD, probably not.
What about a penny DVD? That's out there too.
No,
Oh, come on, you know you want to buy it. Pull the trigger.
I want to see it in high def, but yeah, it was good.
Up formatting. Up formatting.
I definitely watch it streaming, and I could see people who are really into it wanting to buy it, and I think that it would be deserved of that, especially with all those extras that you mentioned. I think that would be a good value. And like I said, I think this is a good movie that like a wide range of people would enjoy. Like I could see showing it to like my friends, and some of them would probably really like it, or showing it to like older people like your parents or something, and they would probably like it, sort of on a different in a different sort of way. It's general enough in the plot to appeal to a wide range of people, I guess.
Yeah, and it tackles a lot of issues that I think would be interesting to a wide variety of people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a mainstream movie in that respect, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, wow, that was a cop out. Good job there. You
Well,
couldn't
was
you
either-
couldn't do a buy. Have you done a buy at all ever in our 17 episodes? I don't think you have.
I'm gonna have to make like a chart up here with all of my ratings on it, so I can keep
What
track.
movie would you buy? What was the last movie you bought? Seriously.
I own a lot of movies.
Let's talk about it. What was the last movie you bought?
Okay. What is the last movie I bought? Oh, okay. I bought. This is a perfect example of an affordable quality Blu-ray release.
Okay, all right.
I basically only buy Blu-rays now because I'm snooty like that.
Right.
But no, Amazon just had. I think it's still on sale. It went off sale, but then it went back on sale.
What is it?
They have a 2-pack of A History of Violence. Have you seen that film?
No.
It stars.
I know of it. I've not seen it. It stars Viggo
Yes.
Mortensen.
Viggo
Yeah.
Mortensen. He like loses his memory, and then it turns out he used to be in the mafia, but he doesn't remember. And there's people trying.
He's
to
got
kill
all the
him.
tattoos. Yeah, and Naomi Watts is in it. Yeah, I know the one you're talking about.
So it's that and American History X on Blu-ray, 1-pack for like $8.
And see, you just pointed out a movie that would never ever need to be in Blu-ray format. It looked great as it was. Why did you need to do better
It
with
looks
that?
Greater.
Oh, jeez.
Greater.
Whatever. I had that movie on VHS and I liked it.
You like the grittiness.
It was a gritty movie. That's a whole other discussion. Let's end this show, shall we?
All right. Well, thanks for watching Instant Gratification, episode 17. In case you missed it, you were so entranced by us that you didn't even notice all this stuff down here. Here's all of our social media links. So if you dug this video and you want to see more of it, go to Geektacular.TV. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can follow us at Geektacular.TV. You can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Geektacular.TV. You can subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/Geektacular.TV. You can add us to your circles on G+, and G+.2/Geektacular.TV. We're all over the freaking place. Be sure to go check it out. Our main website has all the archives of Instant Gratification in case you want to see some of the earlier episodes.
Yep.
Pre-YouTube episodes.
Yep.
Some good movies there. But yeah, I think that's about it. Be sure to check Twitter or the main Geektacular.TV feed for the movie for next week, which we'll announce there in the next day or two. So yeah, if you don't have anything else,
I'm good.
it's Bruce and Nathan. Instant Gratification. See you next week.
Stay tuned for the bonus episode where we rate Batman. Do you include Batgirl in that too, or Batwoman? What was she in the Adam West series? Was it Batgirl?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if we can include. We'll see.
For a bomb.